Hi and welcome to Movies Suck. Well, here we go again. Yet more insane leftist nonsense. And today's leftist, insane, crazy, nonsense, spectacular is that Chris Pratt is being attacked as a white supremacist after not being part of Avengers-themed virtual fundraiser for Joe Biden. Oh my god. Someone doesn't support Joe Biden, or at least doesn't want to actually be seen to be supporting Joe Biden, or, more likely, just didn't have time to be involved. Although actually, as far as Chris Pratt goes, there's a very good chance that he really actually doesn't support Joe Biden. With good reason, or at least he really doesn't support the Democrats. As we can all ascertain simply by looking at the Democrat Party and seeing what they stand for. And that's an eye-opener. Assuming you're the kind of person that doesn't live in a bubble, you'll know exactly why supporting the Democrats is a terrible, terrible idea. Especially in this upcoming election. Maybe the next election supporting the Democrats will be a great idea. Maybe the Democratic Party is still going to be full of all these complete idiots, but there's every chance that they might have managed to get control of the wilder, crazier, more communistic elements of the party and will actually put a candidate that's worth voting for. So, Guardians of the Galaxy and Jurassic World trilogy star Chris Pratt has once again come under fire from social media users, this time due to his absence from a list of attendees for an upcoming virtual fundraiser being held by his fellow Avengers, Infinity War and Endgame co-stars in support of former Vice President Joe Biden's presidential campaign. Well, already this sounds like a complete shit show, doesn't it? What I get from this is Hollywood retards support, well, political retard. That's pretty much what we get from this. Idiots support idiots, or at least mentally deranged idiots. Although, to be fair, being in Hollywood, they're probably all mentally deranged, and the ones that aren't mentally deranged are hiding. Just like possibly Chris Pratt is, having to hide what he thinks because he knows what Hollywood is like. He exists there all the time. He has to put up with these people 24/7. Okay, maybe not 24/7, maybe like 16/7. 16 hours of the day he spends time with people who are just complete mentally deranged idiots who just run around the streets going, Orange Man bad. This is what these people are like, and this is what he has to put up with. So no wonder he doesn't really want to be involved in this whole thing, and no wonder you can't find any evidence of what he does support anywhere on his social media. At least not that I've found. Anyway, let's read a bit further. Titled, Voters Assemble. The October 20th fundraiser is set to feature Q&A and trivia hosted by Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame directors, the Russo brothers, as well as appearances by Democratic Vice Presidential candidate Kamala Harris, oh dear God, these poor bastards, and various Avengers cast members including Don Cheadle, Chris Evans, this is a list of people that just make you want to smash your own head in with a hammer. Scarlett Johansson, well, at least looking at her would be fun. Paul Rudd, an amusing guy. Doesn't make you want to smash your head in with a hammer. And then you hit Mark Ruffalo and you think, please, someone strangle me now. And Zoe Saldana. I don't actually know much about what Zoe Saldana thinks, but I have a good idea. Because she's on this list, so therefore we have a fairly good idea of what is in her mind. Attendance is open to the public but requires a donation of any amount to the Joe Biden Victory Fund. That just sounds awful. Which surprisingly aims to elect Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Democrats up and down the ballot. What a shock. What an absolute shock. I love this little picture here. Voters assemble, the cast of the Avengers unite for democracy with Senator Kamala Harris. Hang on. Unite for democracy? That doesn't quite sound right when you're trying to vote in communists. Anyone who looks at the history of communism will see that, not much democracy involved in any country that actually had communism. More like authoritarianism or dictatorship involved. These people are absolutely insane. Fancy trying to associate the word democracy with these people, with the Democratic Party. I know the Democratic Party seems to have democracy in the title, but that's a misnomer, don't be fooled. Anyway, curiously, despite the absence of several notable eligible American voters among the Avengers, including Robert Downey Jr., Jeremy Renner, Elizabeth Olsen, users on social media took specific issue with Pratt's non-attendance, with many angered by their own assumptions that his aversion to supporting the Biden candidacy meant that he was a supporter of President Donald Trump. This is what I read into it when I first looked at the list of people who are going to be there. I thought, hang on, there's a bunch of other people in the Avengers, reasonably famous people, who also aren't on that list. And yet we know for a fact that they also suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. TDS is a very, very real thing. It's so real that there are literally people that are just screaming nonsense. Just screaming Orange Man bad at their phones or whatever, and they're actually posting on social media so that everyone can see how absolutely insane, deranged they absolutely are. But for some reason, they decide to single out Chris Pratt as being the Avenger that wasn't there. So why, of all the Marvel characters, or people playing Marvel characters, did they decide to single out Chris Pratt? Well, let's read a bit further and see what nonsense they come up with. Damn it, I am literally just finding out that Chris Pratt is a Trump supporter, and I am so messed up behind that, wrote children's author and really American senior advisor Majid M. Padelin. You let someone like this write books for children? Doesn't sound like a good idea. He's clearly not quite right in the head. Or his ability to work things out with information that has been put before his eyes is not great. Or he's just an idiot. Lots of them around. So Gwot Thought said, Chris Pratt being a MAGA dummy really was not something I was mentally prepared for. Okay. Dummy is definitely a word I would associate with this comment, but I would associate it with the person making it. User Cinematic Smith posted a picture of Regina King's character from HBO's Watchmen discovering a KKK uniform in the closet of character Judd Crawford, alongside a caption that read, Chris Pratt, closet be like, implying the actor as an outright white supremacist. These people are psychotic. Absolutely psychotic. User Davin Mitchell wrote, I'm really frustrated that I can't watch Parks and Recreation the same way now that I know Chris Pratt is a white supremacist, because we have had so much evidence that Chris Pratt is a white supremacist. The evidence is all over the place. Absolutely everywhere, apparently, if you're completely insane and deranged. And you believe that, Donald Trump is a white supremacist, even though he's denounced white supremacy who knows how many times. And that, in fact, there are so few white supremacists that if you were to line them all up, you could probably manage to kill them all with one single bullet. That's how few there are. It's an utterly bizarre statement. Anyway, however, contrary to this widespread assumption, there is no public evidence to support the claim that Chris Pratt will be voting for the current president in his re-election bid this November, and records show that he previously donated $2,000 to the 2020 presidential campaign of U.S. Representative Tulsi Gabbard. Gabbard is a Democrat and represents Hawaii's 2nd Congressional District, pretty much the only sensible Democrat. A Democrat that if you listen to, you can think, wow, she actually has a brain. She seems to have the ability to think and reason and use the odd bit of logic, which is not something you associate with the Democratic Party on a whole, because they are completely and utterly, unelectably insane. And should Joe Biden actually become elected, I will be not only shocked, I will be appalled. It would be unbelievable. I know that the polls and everything seem to be showing that Biden is probably going to win, but I think this is a complete fabrication by the mainstream media, because I just don't see the support. Not anywhere. Except on Twitter, obviously. But then, there aren't that many people on Twitter on the whole. They find themselves to be suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, and then feel the inexplicable need to share it with as many other people that support them as possible. Which is why they're all on Twitter. Twitter is a place of almost no moral backbone. But I digress, as I often do. Others accused Pratt of being anti-LGBT and a supporter of gay conversion therapy, again without evidence, based solely on his attendance of the Hillsong Church, a church that holds traditional Christian thoughts on gay lifestyles and gay marriage. You mean a church which maybe holds up to, the doctrine of the church, but they've toned that down a little bit, and instead they just said, no, we're not a massive fan of gay people. It's just not right according to our religion. And that's fair enough, because people can hold whatever opinion they like. That is the wonder of the First Amendment. You can say and think whatever you like. It's entirely up to you. You can either agree with traditional Christian thoughts on gay lifestyles and gay marriage, or you can disagree with that sort of thing, and you have the right to vocally tell people that you do or don't. Just being related to something, because it's very obvious, going by any information you find on Chris Pratt, that he is actually a Christian, a practicing Christian, a Christian who actually believes in Christianity, an unusual thing these days for almost any Christian. He's obviously fairly orthodox. And he has apparently previously responded to similar accusations leveled at him by Ellen Page by stating that he was a man who believes that everyone is entitled to love who they want, free from the judgment of their fellow man. He obviously says that he believes people can be with whoever they like, and they should be free from judgment, which also states the same thing about him, that he should be free from your crazy judgments, which obviously he's not, because, we all have the right to think whatever we want and judge people however we like. Unless, of course, you live in Britain, in which case you're not really allowed to have these thoughts. You're allowed to have these thoughts, just don't let anyone else know about it, or the police will be knocking on your door to correct your thinking. And then this person says, Chris Pratt thinks it's acceptable for a church to literally torture LGBT kids until they say they're straight. Pratt is a monster for defending conversion therapy, which he absolutely did not do. All he does is go to a church which would agree with this sort of stuff. That doesn't mean he agrees. You'd have to actually have his actual opinion. Ask him, see what he says. He might not want to reply. He might think, what the hell? Piss off, you idiot. And that's entirely fair. Incidentally, back to the whole white supremacy thing. I was rather curious about the whole white supremacy thing, so I thought, can we find anything on Chris Pratt's Twitter which would indicate his white supremacy? So I looked, and I looked, and I looked, and I looked, and I looked a bit more because, I thought, well, since I'm looking, let's carry on looking. And no, there is nothing here, obviously, because that would be retarded if there was. So I thought, let's check his Instagram. That's bound to be full of white supremacist stuff, probably like white hoods and everything. Burning crosses. And I looked, and you know what I found? This is what I found. A black square. For that Blackout Tuesday nonsense, which he actually says. Blackout Tuesday. Which implies that he was supporting black people rather than, wanting to kill them. Yeah, not a great bit of evidence for the whole white supremacy thing. In fact, there is no evidence on any of Chris Pratt's social media that shows him as supporting white supremacy, or of supporting Donald Trump for that matter. No evidence whatsoever. The closest thing you can come to evidence that Chris Pratt might support Donald Trump is that he doesn't say anything against him that I've seen. He has plenty of friends who are completely Trump deranged, but he himself seems to be an extremely grounded person who seems to keep mostly to himself as far as his opinions go, and is a good Christian. I can't exactly see what these people are talking about. User Vibe Sexual Simi, pointed to the bio of an unspecified Chris Pratt social media account which featured a variation on the same bio Pratt uses on his personal accounts, and said that Chris Pratt's bio radiates homophobic white Christian supremacist energy. You already know for a fact that he's a Christian. I would be surprised if he didn't love his wife and his family, and, well, he can support whatever and be fanatical about whatever he likes. And let's face it, MMA is pretty cool for the most part. Author and journalist Chrissy Stroop dismissed those insisting there's no source, showing that Chris Pratt supports conversion therapy, and argued that you don't get to go to a notoriously homophobic and abuse-harboring church like Hillsong, then pretend you're not complicit. Or maybe he just likes that church. You don't have to agree with everything wherever you go. I certainly don't agree with a lot of the stuff that YouTube does, but I'm still here on YouTube, aren't I? And yet YouTube is remarkably left-wing and terrible. It used to be a great place. It used to be the last holdout against the Trump-deranged left-wing hyper-crazy nonsense, but unfortunately now it's joined in, after all the adpocalypses and such like. But I'm still here. Am I a raging left-wing nutcase? No, strangely I'm not. Therefore I do not agree with YouTube on everything. And I'm pretty sure you could say the same about Chris Pratt and his church. This outrage also coincided with an instance of semi-regular circulation of a popular internet meme that presents users with Chris Hemsworth, Chris Pratt, Chris Pine, and Chris Evans, and asks users to choose one that has to go. Go on, get lost, you. Notably in response to this iteration of the post, former Marvel author Chuck Wendig And Marvel's Spider-Man voice actress Felicia Day stated that they would always choose Chris Pratt, pictured here. And, well, who gives a shit? Twitter user Eric Chance added, Chris Pratt supports Trump and is a member of a mega church that does conversion therapy and won't have any queer people in any position of leadership, etc. They added, let's not get into this. We remove the person who's a white supremacist. Some people are just a bit thick. So full of Trump derangement syndrome that they cannot think straight, not even a little bit. These people are absolutely insane, as shown by this story, and by the fact that there is no evidence whatsoever anywhere, not anywhere, to support the idea that Chris Pratt is a racist, white supremacist, Trump supporter, or anything else, because sensibly he keeps his thoughts about these things to himself. A great idea in Hollywood, especially if you want to keep your integrity, which he seems to be doing, unlike, well, the vast majority of Hollywood actors and actresses. In any case, this has been Movies Suck saying, oh dear God, how much longer is this nonsense going to go on? How much longer can Hollywood hold out against their own insanity? Signing out, leave a like, share, subscribe. I will catch you guys on the flip side.